In this video, I want to show you a quick way to create a cast shadow, and also we're going to manipulate the light source on the vehicle to make the light look like it's coming from the same direction as the sunlight in the background. So let's get started. I'll pull out my layers panel so we can see it better. I'll make a new layer. I'm going to call this one cast shadow. I'll put that below the car. And I'm going to command click on the thumbnail of the layer mask for the Z, the car. That will turn that layer mask into a selection on my new cast shadow layer. I'll take my eyedropper by pressing I and select a dark color from inside my photograph and then fill the cast shadow with that color and deselect. So we now have this silhouette of the car. Now I'm going to press Command T for the transform tool, hold down the Command key, and click on this center point and just drag it down. Continue to hold the Command key, and you can click on any of these bounding box points to manipulate and distort this shape to make it appear to be a cast shadow. So we're using the sand as a reference and trying to create a cast shadow that is similar to the shadows on the sand. I'll hit return to perform the transformation. Here in the front, we're just going to have to paint around this first part. So I'll choose the brush and I will make it a little bit less soft and get the size down. Somewhere like that, and then I have to increase the flow and then paint around this area here to finish off the shadow around the front. All right, now we're going to convert this for smart filters so that we can modify the shadow non-destructively. That turns it into a smart object. Then I'm going to go to Filters, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and create a blur that feels like the shadow on the sand. I think that looks pretty good. Say OK. And then I'm going to reduce the opacity and change the blend mode to multiply. Zoom out a little bit to look at it. Now I think it would be nice to have the shadow fade out a little bit as it gets farther away from the car, because the sunlight would be coming around the vehicle. So the darkest part of any shadow is right under the object or close to the object. So I'm going to add a layer mask, and with my brush, make my brush much larger, and I'm going to reduce the flow down to like 9% or so. And with black, toggle to black, I'm going to lighten the shadow as it moves away from the vehicle. Maybe around the front there a little bit. Because this is non-destructive and we're working on a mask, if you need to bring it back, you just toggle back to white and then you can restore the shadow. Let's add another shadow directly under the car, and I'll just call this one dark shadow. And I'll increase my flow up to like 80% or so, and then make my brush much smaller. Click behind the rear tire, hold down the shift key, and then click, and then I think I'll just paint around the front. Again, I'm going to convert this for smart filters, changes it into a smart object, go back into Gaussian blur, soften it, lower the opacity, and change the blend mode to multiply. All right, so to make it look a little bit more believable, I'm just going to mask the tire so that it looks like it's in the sand a little bit, pushing up the sand, both sides, something like that. All right, now we're going to change the light source. So hold down the Option key and add a solid. I'll just name this change light source. And I'll use the previous layer as a clipping mask. So it is above the car, and we have the clipping mask relationship. So it's only going to affect the car. Right now the color doesn't matter. I'll just say OK. Then I'll hide that layer by turning off the eyeball, double click on the color preview of this vector color layer. That brings up my color picker, and then I can move into the image with the eyedropper, and I'll choose a shadow color from within the car, a medium or one of the medium or lighter shades in the shadow area. Say OK, turn this back on, change the blend mode to multiply, click on the layer mask and fill the layer mask with black to hide it. Now I'm going to use a brush with a fairly low flow and a soft, make sure it's soft. And now I'm going to reveal the change light source layer by painting with white. Now this is something you should probably do. You should be really careful when you do this to make it really accurate. You want to try and avoid areas like this where I've overlapped a previous shadow area, so I can toggle between the black and white to make this a little more accurate. But you can get the highlight off of the wheels and off the mirror and everywhere, and basically make this whole side of the car appear to be in shadow. All right, now I'm going to create the highlight on the opposite side of the car, so it looks like the sun is on that side. For that, I am going to use a levels. I will use a clipping mask, so it only affects the car. I'll call this highlight. Okay, so now I'm going to push the highlights to the left, and I want to concentrate. I want to just try to focus on this side of the car. Try to ignore everything else and try to get that quite bright. All right, then I'll do the same thing with this one. Fill it with black, and then toggle to white and reveal it just where I want it. Make my brush a little bit larger. So already we're starting to get the sense that the light is coming from the other side of the car. Previously the car light was from multiple directions. The car was shot in a garage with lights all around it. So now we're trying to give it a single light source, the sun, and match the light of the environment in which we've composited the image. All right, I'm going to do one more layer here. It's going to be a paint layer. I'll just call this painted highlight. Use previous layers of clipping mask, and I will paint with white along the edge of the car here. And then I will change the blend mode to screen and lower the opacity to let some of the original image show through. And so in just a couple of minutes, we have completely changed the light source on this car.